10 years ago, I started making Pixel Art Academy, an adventure game for learning how to draw. The development ended up taking all of my 30s, and I finally released it on Steam 1 year ago, exactly on my 40th birthday. But the game I released was quite different from how I imagined it at the start. Even 5 years ago, when I made my previous 5-year anniversary video, I had no idea how much the project would change in the last few years. And I don't think anything could have prepared me for this. I simply had to experience it myself. So let's rewind time and take a look at the first 10 years of Pixel Art Academy development. Games from the 90s hold a special place in my heart. So many of them made me not only have fun, but also learn something about the real world. From exploring the lives of ants and prehistoric people, to building Roman or modern cities. You could even read about science and history writing the games. I imagined we'd be learning all kinds of things this way, but over the years, games that focused on entertainment but still had an educational component were harder to come by. Meanwhile, the internet enabled the sharing of knowledge like never before. It made it very accessible to learn as people posted articles and videos about their favorite topics. This is how I improved in game development and digital art, and I even made a few tutorials myself. When it was time for university, I considered going to the art academy, but as spaces were limited and they only taught traditional mediums, I decided to go with programming instead. After graduating from computer science, I soon found myself depressed as a general software developer. I wanted to make games, and I wanted to combine them with my love of art and teaching. Back then, I was living as a foreigner in the US, and the only way I could stay there if I quit my job was to go study instead. I applied and got accepted into a master's program in education, but I had no idea how to pay for it. I set out to find a research assistantship, and also considered a crazy Plan C to run a Kickstarter. I was desperate to make this work, but what campaign could I make? I deliberated between creating more pixel art tutorials, developing an online learning community, making a magazine about pixel art, and I also had an idea for a unique 3D pixel art drawing software. I was torn for a while, until it all came together. All of these ideas could live inside a video game world. I remember the games from the 90s, and I imagined it as an adventure game where your character goes to art school, but you also learn drawing alongside them. In a twist of luck, I did land a research assistantship, so I didn't need the Kickstarter to cover my expenses. But as I already developed the idea, I ran the campaign anyway. I set the goal to just $1,000, as I would start making Pixel Art Academy in any case, as my master's project. Any funds I would raise would enable me to work on the game full-time after I graduated. The Kickstarter turned out to be an overwhelming success, and a couple thousand people expressed interest in learning art with a video game. This was amazing, but also quite scary, so I made sure to let the backers know that the Kickstarter would cover just the beginning of the development, and the game would take a long time to make since it would be just me working on it. But even so, neither I nor my backers imagined this would take over a decade. In the 5-year anniversary video, I explained why it took so long to make just a text adventure. The game's design is quite unique, and while it plays like a text adventure on the outside, it has many different systems on the inside. A lot of the gameplay happens on a tablet with many apps that I developed. It's an online, multiplayer game because learning works better as a social activity, and I wanted you to be able to hop quickly into it. There's even a built-in online store so people could support the game once the Kickstarter funds ran out. When you're just one developer who's doing all the coding, art, and design, all of this takes time, and that doesn't even cover accounting, marketing, and all the content creation I was doing on the side. Before I knew it, it was 2020 and the 5-year anniversary of the Kickstarter. The game's alpha was released to all the backers, and you could see a glimpse of all the things I planned for. An online learning environment, pixel art tutorials, an in-game newspaper, and a unique pixel art graphics engine. Even more pieces were unfinished or unused, like the still life editor, global illumination renderer, and the audio engine. I let passion guide this project, and it showed in the attention to detail, but also in slow overall progress as I jumped between development on many parallel aspects of the game. I rationalized that all these systems will be needed in the end, so it didn't matter if I made them sooner or later. Being able to follow what I love that way made the development enjoyable and sustainable long term. Even in a decade, I never burned out thanks to this. If anything, I love the project even more as I see it come to life. However, even though developing the game this way made it sustainable psychologically, it would finally become unsustainable financially. It was always the plan for the Kickstarter to fund just the beginning of the development. The main source was going to be alpha funding, first through my online store and later also with Patreon. This worked for many years, but the trend was concerning as the sales slowly declined and my Patreon reached a plateau. Thankfully, my patrons are incredibly generous, so I was still able to run my business as a solo developer, as long as I kept my living expenses low. I was in Sweden by now, in a co-living co-working community called Spelkollektivet, where about 50 indie game developers live together and work on their games. An opportunity arose to start a game development school there, and they asked me to run it. It was a perfect symbiosis. I could use the art curriculum from Pixel Art Academy, and any learning materials I would create would end up in the game. I could live in the house for free, and even though I'd end up working on the game part-time, since I would also teach programming, I was able to keep the development going. With the first episode of Pixel Art Academy finalized, it was time to make it more accessible and upgrade the text interface into a point-and-click adventure. I wasn't happy with the art style yet, so I first optimized my global illumination renderer to run in real time. I followed my passion once more and thoroughly enjoyed seeing the character's apartment come to life. 2021 simply flew by while I was doing this alongside writing all the learning materials. In 2022, I hit a technological debt. My graphics code was only made to work on a single location, the architecture needed to be redesigned, and my 3D pixel art editor was in dire need of upgrades. But I never got far, as early improvements enabled me to work on yet another feature, an easel editor for high-resolution digital painting. And then, all of a sudden, everything changed. My biggest patron, who contributed more than half of the funding, had to stop their support. I knew this day would come at some point, but until it happened, I was happy to just follow my passion and keep developing whatever was next on the menu. Yet now, the moment was here. My Patreon income didn't even cover my social security anymore, so I had to close down my self-proprietorship. My school job still gave me a free place to sleep and eat, but I was technically unemployed. As I was nearing my 40s, that didn't sound like a smart way to prepare for the future. I would either have to find a high-paying job or find another way for the game to make money. Fearing to be depressed again as a general software developer, I decided to finally listen to a piece of advice that the founder of Spelkollektivet gave me when I moved in. I needed to put Pixel Art Academy on Steam. But how do I put on Steam an unfinished text adventure? My game was like a construction site where one person decided to build a skyscraper with their bare hands. Granted, it had many cool parts, but only the most adventurous players dared enter it while it was under construction. What I should be building instead was a cozy house where the finished parts could be nicely enjoyed. It was a hard pill to swallow because it would be more like edutainment games, which focus on education first and entertainment second. But at least it would be finished. Better late than never, that's what I decided to do. I would call this intermediate game Pixel Art Academy Learn Mode to go alongside Adventure Mode and the study guide. I gave myself the deadline of my 40th birthday to release it on Steam in early access. I had enough savings to sustain myself with the school job until then, but that was it. 1.5 years to build Learn Mode, and if the launch on Steam didn't earn me enough, I'd have to find a full-time job. With a clear focus and a specific deadline, I planned out the features that I wanted to ship with. The development went fast thanks to all the work I already did on the game. I took the best, most polished pieces of Adventure Mode and reused them wherever I could. The artwork of the art studio became the main menu. The task list from the journal app served to guide the players. The drawing app became the main focus of the game. Even the audio engine that I never used in Adventure Mode was now perfect to implement sound effects. Listen to this. This just makes me so happy. Halfway to my deadline, in September 2023, I released my Steam page and a demo. By December, it slowly gained the first 1,000 wishlists. And thanks to a preview by Brandon James Greer, this jumped to over 5,000 by the end of the year. I then needed to start producing new content. I decided to organize the knowledge around the 7 elements of art. The first element, line, nicely corresponded with Jaggis, one of the fundamentals of pixel art. I took the chapter from my study guide and turned it into interactive lessons about diagonals, curves, and line width. You could now draw fan art, and the game would analyze your lines and point out potential improvements. You could then make a pinball machine where you'd use nice diagonals and curves to give a smooth path to the ball. On my 40th birthday, I was ready for release. The month leading up to it was quite stressful, as I felt I didn't have control of my own future. If the game did well, I'd be able to get back to working on it full time. If it didn't, I'd have to get a full-time job. This reality seemed so different, and it was in the hands of the players and the reviews which of them would realize. But the launch was a success. The wishlist grew to 17,000 in the days before launch, and the game sold 7,000 units in the first month. Surprisingly, the wishlist grew even further to 40,000. All in all, it meant I'd be able to make the game full-time again. It's been a year since then, and I released 10 updates to the game, a combination of new content and quality of life improvements. Player asked for help with the colors, so I added symbols similar to cross-stitch patterns. The pinball project shipped without much guidance, so I added a magazine that gives you references of various pinball parts. People kept asking for a free draw, so I spent a development sprint doing that. And I made more intermediate tutorials since the learning curve proved to be too steep at certain points. That's why I love early access. I can publish the content that already gives value to people, but also make it better with their feedback. It's reassuring to see that even though everyone acknowledges there's more work to be done, players are enjoying what's there and appreciate my approach to learning. With over 13,000 units sold and 97% positive reviews, it's clear that creating Learn Mode was the right decision to make. When I planned the rest of the 6 elements of art, I narrowed it down to around 30 development sprints. With about 15 sprints per year, that's another 2 years to get all the learning content done. I also need time for quality of life features, like an updated input system that will let players redefine keys, or Steam cloud saves and achievements. The game is also very heavy on text, so it needs to be localized to make it accessible to non-English speakers. I'm sure I'll hit a few technical challenges down the road as well, so who knows how close to 5 years it'll actually be until the full release of Learn Mode. What I do know is that I want to eventually get back to Adventure Mode. Even though it took many turns to get here, it seems my heart is still on the right track. It was the initial idea for an adventure game where you'd go to art school that brought me here. I just need to first finish a small house and then find a way to make an apartment building before I get back to the full skyscraper. In many ways, this is a classic story of dreaming too big. But in others, it's about the conviction to create something you wished existed. I dream of a world where people go to school and come out with the love of learning. A world where nobody tells you you're not good enough. Where everyone that wants to go to art school can go to art school, or learn anything else they're passionate about. I don't think this dream should be too big, and so I'm not stopping until it comes true. Hey, if you want to support Pixel Art Academy, I still have a Patreon, or you can just buy the game Learn Mode on Steam. It'll be on sale now for the back to school celebrations. I decided to never discount it below $10 because that's how much it costs on Kickstarter, so out of respect of backers, I'll never be discounted more than that. And if you're one of those backers, or if you pre-ordered the game through my online store, well then you can use the key claim to get Learn Mode for free, of course, and just thank you. Thank you for this unsurmountable amount of patience and support you've shown me over a decade. I'll see you on Discord, I'm on Twitch, and of course here on YouTube with regular devlogs. Thank you so much. I'll see you next time.